Hello, hello, everyone. Can you hear us? Can you see us?
Hello. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Could you please confirm in the chat if you can hear us, if you can see us?
All right, all is good.
All right. So let's give it a minute and wait for the audience.
It's really great to see you all today with us. Where are you coming from, guys? Maybe write in something on chat.
Yeah, that would be lovely to know, obviously, where you're coming from.
Oslo,
And
great. Italy, all right. India, Gdańsk, Poznan. Oh, I live in Poznan. Hello, Przemysław.
so it's pretty global here, huh?
Yeah, Hungary, Germany, London.
All right, let's give it more, a couple of seconds more. All right, so hello and welcome, everyone. And a very welcome, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure. My name is Omar Mir, and I work here in Divinity as Atlassian Enterprise solution team. And today we're going to talk about something that basically impacts everyone in this room: change management. Not just the traditional change management, but we're going to talk about something which is AI powered, basically that transforms your Atlassian ecosystem into an intelligent platform. So over the next 60 minutes, I'll show you basically the real cost of manual change management, not just the time, but the customer impact and the business risk, and how basically AI transforms every phase of this change management lifecycle from alert to basically to closure. And last but not the least, we're going to talk about the realistic ROI. We're going to project basically utilizing our industry benchmarks and obviously the implementation experience we have. So moving forward, and before we deep dive into the solution, for people who don't know us, let me quickly establish who we are. We have been in the Atlassian ecosystem for over 19 years and with a team of 330 experts who live and breathe Atlassian every day. Um, just to remind you, we have successfully delivered around 50 plus migrations. And the important part is with zero rollbacks, meaning when we go live, obviously we go live with confidence. And not to forget, obviously, we are both solution and marketplace platinum partners. So let me basically quickly introduce myself and the person who's guiding you through this webinar today. My name is Omar Mir, and I work here in Divinity. I've spent around 8 years working with organizations like you, helping them transform, obviously, their ecosystem, so on and so forth. And today with me is Jakub Nowicki. Jakub, please go ahead and basically introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jakub. I work as a software developer in Divinity. I'm in Atlas environment for almost 2 years now, and I'm really glad to see you all today. And I'm really happy that I can show you all those cool new AI features that are currently available in Jira Cloud. So thank you.
Great. So, all right, the introduction is out of the way, and let's deep dive into the content. And to get the maximum value out of this, I suggest you please stay till the end of the webinar. We have some resources prepared exclusively for our attendees. And with that incentive in the place, let's get into content. So basically, why we're today here, obviously, you know who we are and what we're offering, but let me lay out exactly what we'll cover today. So we're going to cover basically why change management is still painful. So basically, the current technology stack you have, the processes you have, and how Atlassian proposes the value itself, and then the service collection, basically a part of Atlassian, and how we basically utilize cross collection, and then it sells the solution that is AI powered. And last but not the least, we're going to talk about business impact and the measurable outcomes. And finally, we're going to talk about your questions, and we'll leave the floor for you. All right, so let's start with the problem statement. Why does change management still hurt? Even in 2026, with all the technology we have, why does it really still hurt? I mean, we have all those technology, right? So I just want to know exactly why does it hurt, and maybe let's give you a couple of seconds, and you can basically give a one-liner in the chat. Why do you think it still hurts? All right, we'll see some answers then.
We have few answers. There is too much work. Resource allocation is difficult. From Michael.
All right. All right. So basically, let me start with something that is uncomfortable. Basically, the truth, but uncomfortable truth with every IT leader in the room is living with right now. You know, your Atlassian, obviously, investment is growing 50 to 20% every year, and yet you are not capturizing basically that, the platform's value. And that is obviously not the technology problem. It's a problem of adoption. So what is causing this gap, and what are those culprits? And to start with, we obviously have the usage, siloed usage patterns where teams use Jira for projects, and JSF for tickets, and could be Confluence, for documentation, but they're not talking to each other. And what happens, we have that weak integration architectures. You could basically have 20 plus tools in your stack, but they're barely connected to Atlassian instance. And what happens, even you're paying for that premium features, but your adoption is very limited. And finally, some teams may basically have great flows and automation, but your other teams could be using still spreadsheets and email. So there is no consistency basically, and you cannot scale those best practices across the whole organization. But the good news is this gap is obviously bridgeable, and it's possible by our AI transformation offering. And the next basically few slides, I'll show you how exactly we can do that, starting with our traditional change management and to know why does it literally break down. And here is the pain that looks like in your, day-to-day change management processes: fragmented, tangled, reactive. Requests come in, they flow through this, convoluted manual processes, and along the way, things break basically. That's where you're losing time, creating rework, and frustrating, let's say, everyone. And that's the incomplete data really causing that, that rework, breaching SLAs, and increasing, let's say, the KPIs, which are the change lead time, and decreasing that change success rate. So let's actually break down that holistic change management process, and see what really breaks down phase by phase. So here we have mapped the traditional 8 phases of change management life cycle, and let's walk through each phase and create what really creates friction and what creates business risk. And obviously on paper it looks ITIL aligned and it looks logical, when obviously in practice this is where really organizations bleed time and money. So let's go ahead and down into those phases. So we talk about intake and creation. And let's start when a user fills out that complex form and he wants to basically, request a change. And the problem is either the forms are confusing, fields are not clear, and users really don't understand what information is actually needed. So even before the change request even enters the workflow, what happens? It's already broken. The
Exactly.
classification. Yes,
I
please
would
go ahead.
I would add that even generic request type in Jira got like a lot of fields that you have to manually fill up, right?
Correct. Thanks for adding that. And once we're talking about classification, a change manager really manually decides the type of change. Could it be standard? Could it be normal? Could it be emergency? And the problem is humans, they tend to misclassify, right? And obviously it's very frequent. And once, if a high change risk, let's say it gets missed into a standard one, and it basically slips through their approval phase, what we have is compliance gaps, and they are from day one. So let's look at the risk assessment. That's the visibility problem here, right? So you have that manual change matrix, risk, which is manual, and teams manually review that impact of the change. Obviously, it's difficult for humans to see all those dependencies coming in from, upstream or coming in downstream integrations and recent deployments. So it's very difficult to see and assess risk what you really can't see. So this is also the way, this is where the failure really begins, right? And then the evidence problem. So basically plannings, pre-approvals, and you check if the testing is being done, backups are complete, role plans exist, so on and so forth. And this is just basically they exist kind of in email threads, in Slack message, and obviously it creates that compliance risk and not really validation. Yeah. And then that famous cab approvals, right? So that's the $1 billion problem we have. And usually where it should take 10 to 20 minutes to just a normal sync, but it takes like 3 to 4 hours just for cab approvals and coordinations and follow-ups. So again, really not logical here as well. And then the implementation phase, the basically finally an engineer basically executes that change with that manual coordination, requirements and manual delivery life cycle. But the problem and the issue is here that we have already waited weeks, massive change lead time delays there, obviously deployment delays are there, and developers, product tree drains are also there as well. So it's a lot of delay already. And now the PIR, which is the post implementation review. Teams are supposed to basically review what happened after the change, but the step is manually driven, obviously, often skipped. So because we don't want to learn from our mistakes, and nobody captures what really went wrong. Kuba, do you like to basically write those PIRs?
No, like, dude, like no one likes to do that, but we have a tools for it right now, so that's fine.
Yeah, so great. And let's move to the last step, basically the closure. That's the step when what gets really often entirely skipped because people just want to say change completed successfully, no lessons learned, no reusable knowledge. And if you have a similar task or a similar change, you start from basically from zero. And who's affected here? C-suites, change managers, operational teams, developers, engineers, compliance officers, and so on and so forth. And this pain is obviously coming from different directions, different velocities, different risk profiles. What does that exactly mean? Let me show you exactly what it means. So just to give you the full spectrum of that change risk that every organizations must simultaneously, let's say, manage, and all of this have their unique characteristics and well. So let's talk about the demand your business wants, your audit, your compliance is looking for that audit, and your security, security team wants that control. And this tension is like constantly coming up from these areas. So let's break down in one of the areas, starting with the change, the most common type. So basically these operational change generally are your everyday improvements, right? So meaning change supporting your business continuity functionality, your app updates, your infrastructure updates, your workflow tweaks, your configuration updates, so on and so forth. And these chains are high in number, obviously high in volume as well. And the goal is obviously to accelerate that delivery, you want to accelerate that process optimizations. But the main risk is obviously that you want to move too fast, but don't want to break that stability. So it's very important that these operational chains have that, they come with high volume, high speed, but the risk is obviously that instability. So now let's look at the opposite, the different end of the spectrum, basically the compliance driven regulatory chains. So these chains are basically those chains that are compliance driven, and their goal is basically to meet that external laws and audit requirements, right? So these could be basically those SOX control changes, GDPR privacy updates, Basel financial reporting change, so on and so forth. Obviously it depends on the industry you are on and the vertical you are on. Obviously in healthcare it could be different change as well. However, the key here is that speed is driven by deadlines and audit cycles, and if we miss those dates and deadlines, we could face fines, obviously failed audits, and finally obviously all those regulatory sanctions can place in. So the main risk here is if we really move slow, we could miss the deadlines. And obviously these chains often require that heavy documentation, multi-layer approvals, and so on and so forth. And the most important, you need to be audit proof. So obviously these changes, they bring that tension in, as I mentioned earlier. So now let's look at that third direction, which is where that speed and that control collide, that is, or security driven urgent changes. So these changes are those threat driven responses, often triggered basically those by 0-day vulnerabilities, that critical CVE patches, It could be ransomware response or those active security incidents. And the goal is to basically fix those vulnerabilities even just before they get exploited. And this is about actually protecting your organizations from those active threats, right? So, and the main risk here is to move immediately because you want to move with control, but you are under pressure. Obviously, for example, if you want to deploy a critical patch in just 4 hours, and the temptation is obviously to skip those approvals, you want to skip that testing and you want to skip the documentation, and you just want to get it deployed. But that's really what creates audit gaps, and that really makes things worse actually. So managing all of this obviously with a manual change management is difficult, and this is exactly where AI comes in. So now you understand why traditional change management bleeds time and money. Now let me show exactly what's broken in the current management basically flow, which is starting with the alert and the triage phase. So here you see a change request gets created, obviously, but before even it gets created, your teams are already drowning in noise. So what does it mean? We have that alerts coming in from multiple channels, could be obviously from your PagerDuty, Slack channels, and our engineers are already, like manually watching 5 to 10 channels, and but in reality, the noise ratio could be 1 to 10. So what happens, and human error comes into the play. They're tried, they could miss those false positives, and obviously critical incident gets missed. So hence, if basically a change request gets created, and if it needs that someone basically needs to copy paste the data, and they just copy paste the data, and possibly it could be an incomplete text as well. So here is the kicker: 70% of that alerts actually don't need a change request at all. They're just false positives and even duplicate alerts. But what happens? Our teams are already investing, that time, and because they don't know they are false positives. So for a typical 200 employee organization, that could be 40 to 70 hours of per week just filtering nows. So what's at the stake if we don't fix it? And here is exactly the customer impact. So every delay here, every error, and every incomplete change doesn't actually just frustrate your teams. It hits your customers really directly. We're not talking about just, internal inconvenience. We're talking about revenue loss. We're talking about basically, the customer churn. We're talking about those regulatory penalties and, that reputational damage. So for example, if you are, if you're service disruption, so what happens, if you have a failed change or a delayed rollback, it's directly that you lose that revenue. And if you have a compliance failure, for example, like those incomplete audits or incomplete documentation, and it shows up in your SOC audits or so on and so forth, this could basically lead to your customer trust erosion and potentially loss of contracts. And when these services are unreliable, customers leave, and that's period. Especially in those SaaS industries, and in retail, switching costs are very low, and it's a vicious cycle. If one basically change leads to other ones, and they increase the change risk compoundly. So if you're a CEO, basically you're a CIO, it's your reputation obviously online. So I believe everyone in this room is feeling the pain. So I've painted the problem obviously here. I've shown you the manual processes, the alert noise, obviously the customer impact. Now let's see where Atlassian brings value. Here is the good news. Basically, you don't need a new platform or a new budget or a completely different team. There is no new AI tax. Basically, you already own that capabilities which require that Atlassian Intelligence, Rovo, or Forge. They're actually built in your existing cloud investments, right? So if we compare with this with other ERPs, where you need to upgrade your license, basically if you're on a standard one, you need to upgrade to a premium or enterprise one just to actually activate your agentic AI or add-ons. But here in Atlassian, even if you're on a standard one, you're able to activate your AI just where you're already in your platform. And so just you're applying the change management towards it. So the question is not, can we afford basically AI powered change management? It is actually, can we afford not to activate what we have already paid for? So I've shown you the problem, I've shown you the customer impact, obviously. Let's go and see the turning point. On the left side of the screen, this is where you're today. Obviously, chaotic, fragmented workflows, a lot of approval loops, alert fatigue, and so on and so forth, high failure rates. And this is where we're going. AI driven automation, predictive insights, intelligent routing, accelerated delivery, and you know what? All risk-free. And because our AI solution doesn't just replace human judgment, it basically enhances it. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how this basically transformation works step by step and by phase. Let's start with the intelligent alert filtering. I hope you remember this, manual alert triage, that 500 to 700 slide, alerts per week, and our engineers spending around 40 to 70 hours just filtering noise. What happens basically, we have that, Rovo understands or all the monitoring tools, the data flows in. Rovo basically triages that in intelligent manner. So what happens is Rovo applies that intelligent rule created by you, obviously, and your organization. So if you get around 50 alerts of that same root cause type, it really groups them. If it even checks that environment context, meaning if this is a dev alert, it would stay low priority. If this is basically a regulatory alert, depending on your jurisdiction, depending on the deadline and the business criticality, it would make it tier one. So if these are those prioritized and tiered alerts that are reviewed by, let's say, your humans and verified, and it needs a change, Rovo basically automatically creates the change. And once where this is starts with filtering, and now let me show you exactly the technical foundation that is possible. Herein, we mean the Atlassian-native architecture. So that's the platform architecture view we have created, and that's native Atlassian solution, obviously, with three distinct layers. You have intelligence, you have platform layer, and you have a data layer. So everything you see is already built in your Atlassian environment and basically can be added through your native Atlassian capabilities. And what really makes this unique is that cross-portfolio Atlassian solution. Leveraging that Atlassian investment across all those areas we have, which is service collection, dev collection, and teamwork collection. And starting with the bottom layer, we have the data layer, which is the bottom layer, obviously. So this is where AI learns from your organization's historical data, being said, not generic data. It's an historical data of your organization. So your data layer basically comprises of logs, commits, identity. So basically meaning operational signals, delivery evidence, CMDB context, assets, so on and so forth. And the key advantages that, these collections share a common data. So that means you will have a unified permission layer. Your data is not in silos. You could share a one audit trail. You could share even one security model. Obviously, there are no middleware included. This means that that AI understands your complete organization context, and it's built around your platform that you already use. Next is that platform layer.
Well, let me add something to this data
Yes,
layer.
please.
Like we only present a few data entries here, but basically we can like integrate each data storage, such as, for example, Google Drive or OneDrive. So when you store data outside the Atlas environment, then you can like easily integrate it with the native connectors to the Rovo.
Correct. And even we in Divinity, we have obviously an LL model, which is private as well. So if you're looking forward for that as well, we can utilize that as well. But moving forward with the platform layer, that is connected to yours, orchestrated by AI. Here, basically, we're connecting those three solutions: service, dev, and the teamwork collection. And obviously, in the top row, you have that core workflow and dependencies, and the bottom layer, you have the development and documentation, which means Loom, Confluence, and Jira, obviously here. And then the top layer, this is where the magic really happens. Yeah. So you have that Atlassian Rovo that provides that agents for intelligent automation, and the search capabilities for you, and the Forge platform that acts really as an enabler. This is where we can build that risk scoring logic for you, guardrails for you, and we can apply that specific automation rules according to your organization. And finally, we have that layer that is the AI extendability on the right side. So you can see how basically AI extends across your whole platform. So you can ask Rovo basically that, what is really the status of that change request currently? You can summarize those change requests. You can obviously, create that serviceless integration. So you can run those apps on that custom Forge app. And also, finally, you can add that marketplace add-ons, like if you want a deep discovery, if you want to enrich that, CMDB. And currently, we are using RTM plugin, which Kuba is going to show you later on. And now, here comes the AI-powered change management solution, a fully powered lifecycle. And this here we have that entire change lifecycle And here are the key phases. We start with intelligent triage, smart, basically risk, and planning and approvals. We have that in implementation intelligent, which is compromising of the SDLC, and then we have finally that auto documentation, which compromises of PIRs and closure. And now let's deep dive into those phases. Jakub, please go ahead and take the screen.
Thank you, Umar. It was really great. May I ask? Oh, it's already there. Thank you. First of all, we'll focus on the first phase, which is intelligent triage. So, as all you can know, the Jira is really incredibly powerful tool. It can allows you to connect external monitoring tools such as Zabbix or any like other chats, emails, and so on directly into your instance. But this multi-channel intake often creates really massive volume of noisy alerts. But right now, using Jira out-of-the-box features, we are basically able to create a really powerful intelligent triage engines directly in Jira automations that can connect multiple Rovo agents to work as one. And this can really filter all those alerts, reduce the noise, and make your team only focus on what really truly matters. So let's see it in action, and we will jump into the shoes of Sarah, our risk and compliance officer. So this is our first demo of our session. So everything starts from the simple email, and this is a new regulatory update related to updating user sessions durations. And basically, this came to our mailbox that is connected to our Jira Service Management project. Sarah just received a tier 1 notification from the engine, from the AI engine, containing all the key details and insights calculated based on 5 different dimensions, such as jurisdiction, effort, and so on. As you can see, Rovo even knows that our company is based in Poland. With a simple click, we are able to open up this notification issue. On the default page, we are able to read the full original content of it. And on the AI scoring tab, we can read the same values we could read in email, but we can edit it. As you can see, the affected business services are already filled up for us, so we don't have to manually audit those values, and we will not miss context. Now, let's move issue to the scoring validation status, and let's validate the AI scoring. Now we can create a change, but we are unable to do it. First of all, we have to go to the human review tab and check 2 boxes that we verified AI scoring tab, and the human legal review is already here. Without that, we are unable to do it, like the human in the loop is always needed. Right now, we are able to create a change, filling up the less necessary fields such as affected business services, if something is wrong, and the implementation deadline. And basically, that's it. Rovo under hood will analyze its all content and create a really decent looking change request for us. So now let's move to the another slide and another phase, which is smart classification and risk scoring. So as far as you know, before the LLMs era, the change managers or any other person would have to manually fill all those endless forms. And this could take from 20 to 30 minutes per ticket. And there's a lot of tickets, right? And some people might forget some fields to fill some fields. For example, the urgency, the CMDB objects, and this is really causing us to data being incomplete. And trust me, if you want your company to be AI ready, this is really critical part. And with Rovo agents and the Atlassian intelligence, we are just fundamentally shifting this approach. We are moving from the manual entry to the just reviewing what the AI just generated for us or proposed to us. AI can read the full context of the change request and then automatically populate all those complex fields for us, such as change type, reason, urgency, and so on. And this is really decreasing the amount of incomplete data and massively speeds up your job. So the moment you just open up your change request, all those heavy fields will be automatically done for you. So this huge chunk of heavy lifting is already done. So let's jump into another video to see Rovo agents in action.
So basically, Rovo does calculate that blast radius for you utilizing that CMDB and dependency mapping, so you know what is the risk score and so on and so forth, right?
Exactly. It's now your full company's context, all your CMDB object, and so on. So yeah, this is true.
Great stuff. Let's go and see it.
Let's see it. Right now, we switch to Jakub. He's our change manager, and he just received a new change request on his queue. So as you can see, the description is already filled up by the real key insights from the entry points, such as business criticality, jurisdiction, compliance effort, and so on. Even the implementation deadline is already here. Sarah didn't even had to do this work. As you can see, the affected business services and all related objects are already connected to our change requests. So now we can see the graph to calculate the blast radius of our change, of how many other services are affected by this one. And by having that, we can scroll down a bit and to see that the Confluence page is already created for our change request. This will work as an audit trail for us. We don't have to manually create those values. In linked work items, we can see our entry point, and with a simple click, the Summarize with AI, we can get even more knowledge of the entry point and why this change request is even created. On the right side of the column, the change nature, for example, this field is automatically populated by the AI. So you can see it's set to the compliance because of the context of it. And now at the change classifications tab, you can see that all the heavy lifting is already done for us. The impact, change type, urgency, risk, they're already here. We don't have to manually search through all the data. It's already there. Even Rovo even provided us the justification of his actions, provided us the historical data, the similar change requests, and that's it. Basically, you can always, as a change manager, edit those values. So there's always human in the loop. And that's it for this session. And we are moving to the another phase, which is planning and approvals. And before we start, Umar, let me ask you a quick question. Do you like planning a meeting for let's say 10 people?
It's a hard time, obviously, scheduling that meetings and obviously looking around where is the free slot so that I can fix that, find that meeting for me, obviously. But I think Loom does it for us, and obviously it's a great job.
Yeah, if you can relate with that, then just write it on chat. I can hear how many of us have the same problems. So traditionally, creating the implementation, a rollback, and test plans could take 4 hours of the manual work, right? And let's add the scheduling hours to it, like defining CIB meeting slot for a lot of members. It creates a really major bottlenecks. So right now, with our intelligent workflow approach, we can completely fix this. The system can automatically generate those complex plans instantly based on your previous data, for example, and even schedule the calendar meeting for the CIB minutes meeting and search through all the attendees' calendars availability to approach with the best time for it. And to completely eliminate the audit gaps, we can even leverage Loom product to record the CIB meeting. So as far as you know, there is a huge amount of knowledge or critical information told on those meetings. And if no one's really noting that, they're just gone, just like that, right? And Loom can fix these issues just by recording our sessions. So let's see it in action on the next video. So right now, we are again as a change manager, and we move our just change request to the planning status. Let's see on those 3 tabs, the planning, approvers, and plans tab, they're all empty right now. But with just a couple of seconds, under hood, Rovo is already working for it. It's just provided us and updated our change request. It's estimated for our duration and either proposed and suggests his justification directly into a summary field on this tab, regarding providing the historical data and its estimations and the KB articles. On the approvers tab, we see that there's already one dedicated group created for us, and all the relevant stakeholders that are somehow connected to this maybe objects, change requests are already here. You can easily manage those members by clicking one button. On the plans tab, you can see the implementation, backout, and test plans are already generated, and the Rovo also suggests us the justification of his actions. Let's scroll down a bit and to see that our change agent even notified our lead engineers to review the implementation and test plan and so on. Now let's switch to Jan Kowalski. He's our lead engineer, and his task is to review those plans. He can use Rovo chat to just summarize this change, and in one single place, he got all the critical information. He doesn't need to click through all the linked objects and other data from the change request. Having that, he just writes that everything is correct from his side, and let's move forward. Right now, as you can now scheduling the for example 10 members, it might be chaotic, right? But right now you don't even need to leave Jira. You can open up Rovo and just ask him to propose you a best slot for a CIB meeting. It can analyze the members from this change request and propose you a best time because it will search at its calendars and its availability, right? By simply confirming and clicking on one button, we just created a meeting in our calendars, just like that. So you can see it's all present and all the relevant stakeholders are already added to it. We can even go further and ask Rovo to send us a summary mail to all these members. By confirming the action, we just did that under hood. So right now,
That's great. So basically, we just summarize the that all the what happened in change requests and so on and so forth, so that it's ready for that meeting, right?
yep, you will see that mail, and the details just in a while. So wait for it. But right now,
Obviously.
you can see that we can leverage Loom to record all this session for us. So it will be automatically noted for us. We don't have to even think about it. So as you can see, this email containing all the critical information from the email, from the change request, so everyone before entering this CAB meeting, he just can to read one single email, and he will have the same context as everyone, right? Moving one step further, we are just after the CIB minutes meeting, and as you can see, the video is already recorded for us and stored in a safe place. And with just a simple clicking of the few buttons, we can create a really comprehensive documentation and audit trail for this change request, just under our parent Confluence page that was already created for us.
So we can have an isolated space for every change, and then we can have the child items on the parent change, right?
Exactly.
And all is get in one place, and for audits and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Great.
All right, so let's close this change request. Let's approve it. Everyone's from the CIB approved, and let's start the SDLC process. And we can do that in many ways. But for example, one way is to run Jira automation that can run Rovo under hood that would analyze all the items from the change request and create you an epic in your dedicated Jira software space. All right, so we are moving to the phase number 4, to the implementation, and you can call it like intelligent SDLC right now. So traditionally, the product managers and the product owners could spend days of manual creating Jira epics, writing user stories, defining complex acceptance criteria from the scratch. And right now, with the Atlassian Intelligence, we are just fundamentally shifting this delivery pipeline. With just a simple clicks, the AI can propose you a full backlog. It can improve your descriptions, or even create a specific tasks for your teams. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a really massive shift, right? During this stage, I will also present and showcase a really fantastic tool from our own Divinity's portfolio. It's called RTM, and this tool can really help your QA engineers to generate test cases directly from your requirements or your epic. It all depends on your configuration. And if you're a developer, then I'm sure that you are aware that our job is completely shifting from writing code to just reviewing AI, right? And we all have cool features in Atlassian right now for it. So let's see it on the next video.
So basically, that AI is going to suggest for product owners and Scrum Masters, and that for agile delivery, that product backlog, that sprints, and all those epics are generated basically and proposed. So we spend less time on that, but we spend more time on the productivity.
Exactly, you're completely right. And let's see it in action. So as a product owner or product manager, you can easily create a user story, just simply clicking on one button suggesting work child items. As you can see, in just a few seconds, the 4 stories were generated for us. And let's deep dive into one of them. We can, from a simple description, generate a really comprehensive one with the acceptance criteria, user stories, and full context of it, right? Right now, it's time to generate the subtask for our teams. So with just a simple click and a couple of seconds, the AI generates 9 suggestions for our user story. And with a simple click, we can easily create them, all of them, or maybe correct if something is wrong. Now, let's move to the QA engineer and our RTM plugin. So basically, right now, you can easily, clicking one single button, create a really a huge amount of the test cases. And as you can see on the left column, it generated 4 test cases for us. We can always manually edit those values, right? And the RTM plugin gives you one dedicated dashboard, one platform where you can manage and work on your test plans, test cases, test execution, and so on. So right now, look at the developer's job. He just copies up the issue link, runs up one terminal command, then inserts one prompt to implement this task, and Rovo under hood can do all the work for him. Like it can write code, it can add some comments, it can test the code. Look at the human in the loop. Like developers have always confirmed the actions. So before any code changes, we always check what is really like happening and changing in our code. After a while, and when RovoDev just finished the work, look at this comprehensive comment just added by the RovoDev. We don't have to manually, as developers, write all of it. We can just prompt Rovo. Let's finish up the SDLC process. All development jobs are done. We are back as a QA engineer. And add this again in our RTM plugin. You can validate all these developments if everything is correct. From this part, you can always create a defect to make engineers to work and fix something. But let's assume for our case that everything is passed, and this audit log will be later on visible, basically under our epic for RovoDevs to create post-implementation reviews. And when we are talking about the post-implementation reviews, let's move to the last phase, which is auto-documentation and post-implementation reviews. And Umar, we already told that no one likes to write these post-implementation reviews, right?
I think everyone is going to agree with this, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, like this is like a lot of heavy manual work to do here. But because of this manual effort, like PRs are often rushed, skipped, or like left completely unfinished, right? And this caused the evidence that are scattered across the chats, the emails, the undated runbooks. This creates a really massive audit gaps, and we don't want that, right? And before AI, like closing the change request might like it could be like really painful to like read through like all those dozen Jira issues, all its comments, summaries, subtasks, code comments, and so on. But right now, RovoDev really can takes over here. With a single prompt, Rovo can analyze all these lifecycle inputs and instantly generate a really decent-looking post-implementation review, closure notes, release notes for you from the original issues. And this guarantees full auditability with absolutely zero manual note-taking. So let's jump into our final video. So right now, as a developer, we finished the work, and our job is to create a release note. So with a single prompt, we are able to show RovoDev on which epic he should work on. And after a while, it can create you a really comprehensive Confluence page directly under our parent one. So let's refresh the page, and as you can see on the left column, the release notes are already there containing all this data, like the business values, what's changed in what repositories, technical changes, the deployment strategies, testing and validations, and so on. You as a change manager can also use RovoDev to like help in your actions. With one single command and terminal, you can write a post-implementation review. It can analyze all the linked issues, all the linked CMDB objects, every comment, and so on, to create a really comprehensive post-implementation review containing all this heavy amount of data, like each task, the dates, development strategies, technical outcomes, lessons we learned, and so on, and so on.
And obviously, you can share it with everyone. I mean, like whoever is involved in that change, you know, that the retrospective is there, and you know, you basically try to block those silos, and now you know your data and everything else is not more siloed, and you don't work as an organization in a siloed way, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're completely right. Like, it's really improves the job for like everyone. And trust me, like the dev in its name is not only like related to the developers. Trust me. So let's.
I mean, here everyone is basically utilizing it and getting some productivity out of it, right?
That's true. Yeah, exactly. So let's see one last chapter of it. So we will generate a closure notes, and you can see that you can even work on Jira issues directly from RovoDev. I just wrote a single prompt to create a closure notes and to close my issue. And under hood, it just added a comment for us with the closure summary. And look at the status. It's already moved the closed to the completed status, just from one single prompt and a React agent that works under hood. And that's it from my side. Thank you a lot. And Umar, stage is yours.
All right. Can I share the screen? Can you see the screen? If you can confirm, Kuba.
Yeah, we can see the screen.
All right, and all good, right? So let's talk about outcomes. So at this point, we have obviously walked through the architecture, the life cycle, but what really matters, to that leadership is obviously what changes in the business, right? And this slide really shows that outcomes we consistently see what organizations really want to see when they want to move from that, manual to that AI powered change management. And from a financial perspective, we basically reduce that manual effort. Obviously, less time spent on the documentation, coordination. You spend really less time on that audit preparation as well. And obviously, what it directly does, it reduces that compliance risk by making like every change audit obviously ready. So you are by default kind of ready for the change audit. And from a perspective of speed, that approvals become much faster. Obviously, the risk is low as they are automatically routed to the right teams, and obviously teams can deploy obviously more frequently, and obviously decreases the risk as well. So when we talk about that risk and compliance, there is a key shift in it. So right now we used to do this all manually. There is that standardized risk comes in place now because the evidence is obviously captured automatically by mapping and so on and so forth, which is not done now manually. And when it comes to quality, we see obviously higher change in the success of that change rates, and we don't have any documentation gaps and so on and so forth, because we already often go under the root cause of those failed chains. And when it comes to those teams, obviously, as Yakub mentioned, developers really spend more time delivering that value, and they really spend less time on that, admin work and creating those backlogs, so on and so forth, because documentation and reporting is right now done in an automated way. So it really brings all that value to us. You just need to just look around, hover around if all is good. And ultimately for customers, this means just literally fewer disruptions and no really a stable experience for them, because it really counts for your firm. So the big picture here is we move faster, it's a faster delivery, we have that lower risk, and the most important thing, we kind of have that full auditability comprehensively across that all entire change life cycle. And here, now let's translate this into that financial impact. Let's keep it very practical. This is obviously a small size organization here. I took in consideration roughly around 50 to 200 employees, and a few hundred chains per year. The key thing is to understand the value really doesn't come from a big lever here. It's that improvements across the whole entire change life cycle, right? So we have that manual labor which is being reducted. So basically you spend less time on that triage, classification and documentation, and you spend less time on that cap preparations. Basically you remove that coordination overhead and so on and so forth, and you kind of like that often those big costs, obviously that audit and compliance, that fines across, you remove that as well. I mean, maybe not remove entirely, but you reduce that as well. And when it comes to those incident related costs, so those costs which are driven by your failed and poorly controlled chains, so obviously it reduces that as well. And when you combine obviously all of that, that gives you roughly across 150K. That's the annual value potential with a break even of around 11 months. Obviously I have been very considerate here, because we have realized that the value adoption obviously is very not gradient, but it's really adaptable according to the phases here as well. And that is really important, because this is a mid size obviously company, and with few hundred employees only, and few hundred systems and few hundred chains per year. But if you move into a larger environment where it comes to more teams, more services, more chains, that impact really scales significantly. So for enterprise organizations, the opportunity is obviously typically much much higher, because the volume obviously and the complexity of the change is obviously higher. And finally, if you're not sure where to start this AI powered basically change management, you're worried to pick up something that is good. So we basically propose you a bonus, that is the AI change management session that will evaluate your maturity, your technology stack, your data, your processes. And what will happen, we'll do the current stack review, and we'll basically leave you with a mini pager that will help you to understand where you can start with. And if you're really interested, obviously it's at no cost. You can connect me and send me an email. Here is the email, or you can also send an email at Divinity. And finally, before we basically start our Q&A, please expect an invitation to the Knowledge Hub. Obviously, we'll send you the link in a follow-up email after this webinar. Obviously, there will be material from prior webinars as well, and you can stay updated for the upcoming webinars. And the floor is yours. You can ask the questions now. Do we have already any questions coming?
Great. No, we don't have any questions yet. So maybe let's wait a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of seconds, if someone wants to ask us some questions.
All right, let's see. There's a chat. Everyone, someone is typing. How long does it take to fully implement? I think it all depends on your organization. The implementation plan is kind of like, we look at your technology stack, we look into your processes, we look into the people. So we do whole discovery itself according to your compliance procedures and so on and so forth. So we'll look into the areas of compliance, operations, security, so on and so forth. And then we basically do that discovery according to technology stack you're using, the data, how complete is the data, and let's say we run a pilot before we make a recommendation plan and run a pilot, and then we can scale it from there and measure the pilot success KPIs, and if it's all good, then we basically scale that. And it could be time and material as well. Do you want to add that anything, Kuba?
Yeah, like basically we can add, it's all depends on your business process, right? Because like using the Jira is basically giving us the tools, and those tools we can like basically tailor up to your business processes. So it's not needs to look like one-to-one to our case in this scenario.
All right, so we were under migration of the first part, Confluence. Can Rovo be already a part of automations between Jira DC and Confluence? Also, Rovo have any limitations of use it, or it isn't part of the platform with no limitations?
Yeah, Umar, let me handle this question. It's kind of a technical one. And yes, so let me maybe describe the Rovo dev, for example. Rovo dev is actually the React agent, and you can basically add some other MCP servers to it. So basically, if you got like the MCP server in your company environment, then we are basically able to like integrate it. And it can basically even like automate some Jira tasks on your DC and Jira Cloud, right? And about the limitations, of course there are limitations. But in this case, I would like maybe send maybe after the webinar some links to the official Atlassian documentation. And yeah, good question.
All right. And I can add to that, obviously, Rovo is compliant, it's GDPR compliant, and it's SOC compliant as well. However, it's not yet HIPAA compliant. So for healthcare, obviously, clients, obviously, you need to look into that. And when it comes to the next question, how about chains and baselines in RTM? And we have issues to change the order of test cases in an executed test plan. Kuba, that's a tech question. You want to take that?
Yeah, that's a tech question, but basically that's a good question for our RTM team to kind of answer.
All right.
Because I think there's some issues directly in our RTM plugin, right?
Okay. So let's answer that basically once we are done with the webinar, and we can reach out to the person separately.
Exactly.
All right. Should we start with smaller pieces of processes on selected systems, or we should go with a holistic approach? I think the best approach is to always start in a smaller increments, because you understand what is the success criteria, so on and so forth, and you'll learn from basically that readiness. So once your readiness is good and you have that success criteria is met and KPIs met, then we can implement and take a similar approach holistically to your systems which are more critical and your processes which are more core. So we can start with basically processes or services which are not really core, so that we understand, okay, this is working, the KPIs and the success matrix are at least 95% working or 90%, and then we can go a comprehensive approach as well. I hope that answers your question. All right, so okay, that answers the question. Do we have any more questions? All right, so let's wait. We have 5 minutes for the. Somebody's typing. Do see a possibility to connect Jira DC to an AI agent?
Yeah, of course. Like there's like multiple ways how you can connect Jira Data Center to the AI engine. Basically, you can even write your own plugin for Jira Data Center. You can like take a different approach. You can create the dedicated MCP server with the tools that will integrate or do some actions in your Jira DC instance, right? And basically, yeah, you can easily connect it.
All right. So the next question is, how can we best integrate Jira with test automation tools so that the user status reflects real-time test results?
Well, so basically, you are able to create some trigger that will run, for example, the Rovo with certain prompt and the actions he should take. And yeah, like the case is to set the right trigger when this Rovo should work, and then you can easily like reflect those real time statuses on the issues, right?
And obviously, you can give permissions to Rovo as well, and you can control holistically that permissions as well. So, which basically spaces you can look at as well when it comes to Confluence and so on and so forth, right? And then we have a question: how intuitive are Jira tools at the moment on a scale of 1 to 10? I'll let you answer that, Kuba.
All right, so I would say 10 out of the 10. It's not really hard. It's all easy. It just takes few hours to like see on all its GUI and UI, and yeah, I don't think it's really hard.
And to be honest with you, I think they're very flexible and it's very easy to adapt to Jira when it comes to other competitive, tools. So do suggest it is very intuitive. Does Rovo have a public API so that we can connect to an automation tool such as N8N?
Um, Basically, you can. I don't think that there's like the public API for the Rovo, but basically you can use Rovo agents for example when you trigger some, for example, Jira automations that like connects the Rovo inside of it, right? So we can create a web request to the webhook. You can just make a webhook to the Jira automation, and Rovo can like take actions on your data.
All right. So moving to the next regarding RTM, can we again the same, or can we apply AI to to test generation case generations? Currently, AI seems requirement oriented, but we have a need for RAG.
Yeah,
RAG.
you can do it. You can basically make the test generation. You can basically connect it to like whatever Jira issue you want. It doesn't have to like be the requirements on itself. It can be Jira Epic or any other task with the dedicated instructions to generate test cases.
Correct. So we have 2 more minutes. Obviously, Rovo Dev can help to create the cloud plugins in Forge. Is there a way to use AI to extract the requirements for the new Forge plugins by looking at the code of the JSM DC plugins?
Wait, let me read that once again.
Yeah.
Is there a way to use AI to extract the requirements for the new Rovo to the new Forge plugins by looking at the code of Jira Service Management DC plugins? Yeah, of course it is possible. It's you can even like basically Rovo Dev lives on your terminal, so you can if you have like any DC plugins on your computer, you can just tell RovoDev that, hey, look at this particular folder catalog, and this can just analyze the full content of it and then suggest you some code for the Forge apps. So yeah,
Right.
that is possible.
All right. Any more questions as we are? All right.
So I think that the last question, because we're kind of running out of the time. So it's from
Yes.
Robert. So about Rovo connection to Jira Data Center, when we made automations in DC, how hard is to later on switch connection when Jira will go to cloud? All of us are forced to migrate soon, so we do need refactor later on. Basically, the Rovo connections, you will have to, like, basically you can migrate the Jira automations from DC to cloud, yeah. But later on, you will have to put like the manual effort to like change everyone basically of it, because like the custom fields ID will differ, the web requests will differ, and yeah, it's kind of manual effort to like do it, you know.
Yeah. So obviously, the question was more of like, do they need to refactor or do they do the lift and shift first? How to do it? But obviously, you can utilize both techniques, and they're sufficient to basically move to cloud itself. All right. So I think we are out of the time, and we're one past. So thank you so much for being here today. And obviously, we're great that you were here and we addressed all of you. And I hope it was insightful. And thank you so much. So I wish you a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was
Bye
nice to
bye.
see you all. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.